Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
It's Cash Friday, and on Cash Friday, you, my listener, are going to be the man. You are going to be virile, manly. You are going to spend money. Money will be spent. Money will emit from you into the marketplace, and you will be a virile man. You're not going to do what panty waists do, which is to use the credit card or the debit card. Rather, you're going to exercise, you might say, dominion over local economy and spend a green rectangle with, on the face of it, important and noteworthy Americans, beloved Americans, such as General Grant. And we remember that General Grant, in his, though he slew tens of thousands of Yankees in his careless generaling against the South, he did, in an act of grace, extend mercy to the Southern farmers and tradesmen who were filling the ranks of the very gaunt ranks of the Confederate forces. And at Appomattox, he let them go home with their sidearms and their horses because crops were going to be needing the attention of horses. So we celebrate him, and he is on the piece of paper with a 50 written on it. That's called a $50 bill. And today we are going to use $50 bills 2x, 2 times, drawn out from our lender, and we are going to be manly. And cash has the advantage of finishing the transaction. Now, not in the deep legal sense does it finish any transaction at all, but in the provisional sense, since we have an entirely provisional economy, it does satisfy the transaction. There is no record kept. There is no flagellum, as it were, that twitters after the spermatozoa, constantly making a record. Whichever transaction has that flagellum, which is the record in the books of the credit card issuer and subject to surveillance, subject to subpoena, ducis tecum, in case you're ever sought after by the good people. That is the record of every credit card transaction, which is a public event. If you spend cash, it's private, right? Don't you want important things such as spending cash, spending money, to be a private affair? You can do that. You can do that if you spend cash. And today we celebrate your virile masculinity as an American man. Sometimes I say that I address my show to men because American men are so atestosteronal. They just don't have any testosterone. They have no hair on their chest anymore. They're all pale and wan and sort of weak. And they don't get a lot of exercise, even though, of course, outwardly they get a lot of exercise. They do a lot of fishing and hunting and jogging and so on. They're part of sports clubs, so they get a lot of exercise. But still, they are atestosteronal and they're very weak. So I direct my program to the man in Chattanooga. Now, not to you. Now, see, this is the ephemeral audience back behind you, the other people, right, who listen to this show. Not you. You, my listener, I'm not talking about you here because you are the man who matters and you are the exception and you don't make the mistakes of being atestosteronal that other men do by policy, right? They do it by policy. It's a decision that they make. And so sometimes they hear the David Tulis show at Nooga Radio, and I hope are somewhat edified by my discourse. And it is a discourse here. It is not a monologue. It is a dialogue, and you may enter into that dialogue with me at any time, at any moment of your whim, with the slightest velleity, the slightest weakest desire that you may have. You may call my number 800-8949. That's 800-8949. And you know what? I'll tell you what. If you interrupt my train of thought, that's quite all right. You can go right ahead and do that. And if I have time, I'll get back to it. And if I have the presence of mind, I'll get back to any important detail or news flash that I was in the midst of divulging to you here on the David Tulis Show at Nooga Radio, the one and only Nooga Radio, brought to you by the website for the man who matters. And that, of course, is Nooganomics.com. You need to go to Nooganomics.com, not just for the latest postings that explore deep state conundrums and what we could call fairly legal fictions of how the good people run their show, right? Their show of government, which in many ways I would suggest is misgovernment. But spending in cash is important. And on Cash Friday, the first Friday of the month, we always go to our lender, and because a bank, after all, is a borrower. We call it lender because people get loans from them, but in fact, you are the lender. If you have a deposit on the bank, you're the lender, and the bank is the borrower. Especially if you have a CD, something locked up for 6 months or a year or 2 years, you are indeed the lender. And upon the basis of your promise to leave that cash alone, the lender to other people creates from the fractional reserve methods of its mysteries. It creates new money, new dollar units that existed not before, but now are in the economy, giving strength here in Chattanooga. So we say, well, we say we've had enough of that, and so we get cash out and there's some. If you get $100 of cash out, and I do too, there will be memos flashing down to the Fed in Atlanta because the system is so illiquid, though it's full of debt. It's full of debt just urging to be issued out into the economy. Of course, the banks are holding a lot of billions of that in their reserves right now, but still, there's said to be a lot of green rectangle in digital form, urging to be expressed by the building of new shopping malls, right? The purchase of new F-10 trucks before the year gets out, and you can get that write-off, and so on and so on. But Cash Friday is the argument that, well, we understand that it is the tapeworm economy. It is, you could say, an economy of death. And we're gonna do the best we can, and we're gonna use cash today. We're gonna spend money in the local economy, favoring our local merchants, because we do here at the David Tulis Show argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. And the green rectangle, whether it be a General Grant or a General Lincoln here, President Lincoln, or President Jackson. He's on the $5 bill. He's on on the $20 bill. These American notables, we do want to circulate their mugs in our transaction. And every time we flash a 50 or a 20 or a 5 to honor our great Americans. Of course, the one we honor too, the $1 bill with Washington, who allowed the creation of the national government under the Constitution. And what we have today is the promise of General Washington. We have centralized government, a unitary, powerful state, a state with direction, a state that can accomplish things around the world. In fact, that has troops and special brigades in 170 countries. Well, so we're doing cash today, Cash Friday. Get that $100 out. The memo flashing down may warn the lender. There may be a third person who's going to get $100 in cash out. So better be ready. Better get steeled for the coming of that customer who wants 100 green big ones, and going out and spending it in local economy. That's pretty physical. And the war against cash, led by Alan Blinder and Kenneth Rogoff, whose book in 2016. The curse of cash, we can defy them. We can defy them as we love our neighbors here buying local. And think about this: if you get a hamburger or do some local shopping and spending cash, that you avoid the tapeworm tax, which is between 2% and 5%. If it's 5%, the credit card user is probably using American Express, which has the highest fee on that transaction. So avoid the tapeworm tax. I'm buying cash. Well, this is David Tulis, and we have a lot to get to. It's funny how the paper this morning, maybe it was yesterday, has a story by Zach Peterson. I think judge orders sisters to turn over potential evidence in father's wrongful death lawsuit, and it's a story about a police execution here in the Chattanooga area. It was in East Ridge, and it is the proper term for this activity. This courageous activity of an officer, Stevenson, is the proper word is a statutorily sanctioned extrajudicial summary execution. That's what happened in August of 2016. We have the video, first posted by the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, and it is. I looked at it this morning before tapping the button to chat with you. And I couldn't just but express horror again to myself in watching this minute-and-a-half long execution of a man point blank by an officer who played with the old rules, played with the pre-reform rules, the rules that we'd like to think are being taught by these departments, sheriff's departments and police departments, to their recruits and to their incumbent staff. And that is de-escalation. That did not happen. De-escalation did not happen. There seems to have been not a thought about the Stevenson execution of Todd Browning of East Ridge. The whole incident, August the 19th, 2016, on Prigmore Street, bringing out a lawsuit, the first report of which has been in the TFP yesterday or today. And the plaintiffs are Heather Schmidt and Brandy Browning, the daughters. They filed in U.S. District Court saying that Daniel Stevenson's actions against their father were aggressive and unreasonable. And they call for, he should have called for, they say, a crisis response team, a CRT, which Sheriff Hammond has mentioned as existing. He was in a fearful state of mind, and the suit says that the Department of the city of East Ridge, the mayor of East Ridge, right, police departments all are subject to the mayor, was liable for this execution because it failed to supervise, monitor, and train its officers, including Stevenson, an 11-year veteran of the department. Browning never threatened the officer and had a Fourth Amendment right not to be illegally searched or seized, the suit says. Now, that's the first reference to this filing. And what I would really like to do is to be able to be a journalist full time. I'm here in the talk radio business, David Tulis, formerly at the Chattanooga Times Free Press, as the editor who made the business editors look good, the business writers look good. 24 years there, and addicted to the news business. Yes, and which means I'm a poor man, right? So when I get $100 out of the bank in green rectangles, I must be living big on that Friday, right? Living big on Friday, getting out the two general grants, right? The two $50 bills. But the question that I've been thinking about is the whole nature of this grisly case, this grisly official police execution of a citizen. And it is I say it's statutorily permitted. Well, that is accurate. And the statute is it's in the statute. It is you might say the Police Officer Immunity Act. And now I'm trying to find where I have that here. Oh, okay, here it is. Yeah, it's I have it. If you want to see where this is, you go to Nooganomics.com. It's Tennessee Code Annotated 3911, the use of deadly force by a law enforcement officer. And so this action was cleared, okay? It was approved as legal. Now, the proving it legal doesn't mean that it's moral, and I think Sheriff Jim Hammond, who gave his okay to this action and defended it in print, right? He gave me an interview in which he defended it. And Neil Pinkston, the state's agent, they said this was a lawful killing, okay? A lawful killing because the subject, the person who is effectively at that moment owned by the state, made actions and brought it on himself. It says the officer may use deadly force to effect an arrest only if all other reasonable means of apprehension have been exhausted or are unavailable. And there's where the lawsuit is going to hinge. And where feasible, the officer has given notice of the officer's identity as such and given a warning that deadly force may be used unless resistance or flight ceases, okay? And then the officer had probable cause to believe that the individual to be arrested had committed a felony involving the infliction or threatened infliction of serious bodily injury, or the officer has probable cause to believe that the individual to be arrested poses a threat of serious bodily injury either to the officer or others unless immediately apprehended. So the lawsuit, which if I were doing journalism full-time by God's providence, I would have probably heard about and reported to you first. But here the TFP has beat me to it months late, of course, and the story is just kind of catching us up to what happened and the litigation and the latest turn of the judge's demands about Todd Browning's medical and maybe a psychiatric condition. So the story is fresh, of course, but it's the first we've heard of it in the press here in Chattanooga. Now, the question is, is this $2 million plus being sought in damages by the two daughters justified or not? But what I want to look at is, if you don't mind, okay, if you don't mind, is a question that goes back to the two officials I mentioned, Neil Pinkston, the DA, and Sheriff Jim Hammond, who is the most powerful man in the county. By all accounts, the sheriff is the most important man in the county and the most powerful. He has a great authority. He has the military authority in the county, and his office is connected to the land. It is connected to the court and the defense of the court, which is the biblical model, right? His office and the origins of it the Shire Reef, the Reef of the Shire in Old England, connects with the biblical order of things that sometimes I examine and long for. Right? I long for a return to a more godly form of justice. In other words, I long for a return to justice, which we don't have today. We don't have it because of our structure, our legal structure, and our legal custom. Now, you can call me. It's 800-8949, 800-8949. It's Friday, an off-speed day, and while my radio competitors are going bankrupt or on the verge of bankruptcy, we will continue profitably here at Nooga Radio, locally owned and locally operated, as they say. I know that's a cliche you barely hear, but it does mean something, right? We are here. We have 8 or 9 hours of live local programming every day, and more, thanks to FCC revisions in the rules. The radio business is going to be operated on pilot, on autopilot by remote parties, such as the Christian group in Chicago, and no one here anymore, right? We can make, though, a distinction by local writers writing our commercials, local owners, David Tulis, local hosts, local news reporters such as Russell Stroud. $15 billion in debt. That is the debt load for one of our competitors here, whose station you may enjoy. You may enjoy it, but you can profitably enjoy ours, right? Enjoy theirs or profitably enjoy ours. Now, there's a difference between those two, and I suggest you choose option B, profitably enjoy radio, and our multimedia platform here, David Tulis, Nooga Radio, 95.3 HD4, high definition. That's us, 95.3 HD4. Do tune in, and I suggest prefer HD, high definition. It's a bit undersold as a platform, but it is there, reaching out 65 miles. And our main signal, 92.7 FM, we love 92.7 FM. iHeart creditors reject another offer from company as they push for Chapter 11, $15.5 billion in debt. Do you think a company that has that much debt is going to care about the money or going to care about you as advertiser? I just wonder. And Cumulus Media, the owner of a local competitor here in the news and talk field, has $2.3 billion in obligations. Mine are in the pennies, and it's are in the $2.3 billion range, filing for bankruptcy. Cumulus Media filing for bankruptcy. So here we are. I want to get back to the news and this question. Okay, getting back to this question. Neil Pinkston gave Daniel Stevenson a pass, okay, under the statute that you heard. And that is the police killing exemption statute, the police immunity statute. If you're a cop, you can kill someone with protection, the state's protection. Now that it violates the common law and equitable claim of God as against the judge, right? As against the magistrate. The magistrate has a duty to obey God, whether he has a written constitution or not. He has a duty to obey God, and that exemption is not allowed to you. Okay, only to the special person with the special protection who's wearing the uniform in blue and wearing body armor, and like Chief David Roddy carries your military weapons, your multiple your 16-round 9mm clips on your front, ready for fire, ready for combat at any time against some wild person here in this very peaceful city of Chattanooga. This is David Tulis. The question, all right, here's the question. It's the question of standing. If indeed, well, back up. These two men, the sheriff and the DA, gave Daniel Stevenson a pass in the summary execution, the extrajudicial summary execution of a plumber, a very angry plumber who was irrational. He was irrational. He was hateful. He was angry. He had threatened people without having any weapons on him. He had threatened people in a auto parts store in East Ridge before the lethal encounter with its single report of death. Well, I should say 5 reports. He was hit 5 times at point blank range by a military-style assault rifle. Point blank range, his hands at his side, and the fifth round, hitting him in the back. And then the video shows that Officer Stevenson ducks out of the scene for a second, and then he comes back in view of the camera, aiming his rifle at the man on the ground, fearing for his personal safety. A man hit by 5 bullets, 5 military bullets that are known for their injuring power, because when the bullet hits the flesh, it turns and pivots in the body, causing much more damage to the body than a .30 cal, which would just go right through without the twisting, turning action. That is the nature of the .223 caliber, and that is its virtue, if you will, the military virtue of that weapon as it was developed in the war against red communism in the Vietnam era. But the question, I'm not going to get to the question, but hang on, I've got some important announcements for you, important things for you to consider, and I want to get this out of the way because it's complicated. I don't want to muck it up with too much detail, but there's the question of high import in this. Why did the state not view this killing as a violation of its godliness? Okay, because the state in Tennessee claims effectively to be God, because when it prosecutes, it always prosecutes in its own name. It becomes the offended party. How does that happen? How legally does that happen? David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3.